The alien fleet, immense and threatening, approached Earth with an assurance bred from their technological superiority. Its leaders had examined the planet from afar and saw it as an easy target, a primitive world easily subdued by their sophisticated armaments and massive army. These invaders, assured of their successes in the past, thought Earth no different from the numberless worlds they had subjugated in their campaign to rule the galaxy. At this point, the aliens did not know that they had selected the planet Earth, which was soon to be attacked. They had studied its resources, its population, and its relatively underdeveloped military defenses. But they hadn't accounted for one small piece of information, a detail they probably didn't care about. It was a Class 13 death world, where the forces of nature were constantly battering living things, a planet where survival meant constant, mortal combat against that overwhelming natural onslaught. The planet itself had become a battleground of its own, an environment so hostile that only the strongest could endure. The aliens were about to discover that they were not the invincible conquerors they thought themselves to be. The first signs of resistance came not from the humans, but from Earth's natural forces. As the alien ships began to land, their landing zones were suddenly beset by strange weather patterns. What the aliens had expected to be a clean attack quickly turned into chaos as violent storms, tornadoes, and lightning strikes rained down upon them. Their highly advanced equipment, designed for precise operations in controlled environments, faltered under the onslaught of nature. Alien technology, built to withstand the vacuum of space and combat the most advanced civilizations, was no match for the unpredictability of Earth's storm systems. The communication system was cut off, the navigation system shut down, and their advanced weaponry jammed. The invaders could only stand in stunned silence as their previously flawless operation began to crumble. It was not the weather that threatened them, though. The Earth's terrain itself seemed to rise up against them. As the aliens pushed forward, they found themselves surrounded by dense forests, jagged mountains, and vast deserts, natural landscapes that were both beautiful and deadly. They attempted to march through these regions, assuming they could overpower anything that stood in their way. But nature was not so easily conquered. Vast predators, the likes of which no alien had encountered, lurked in the shadows, prepared to strike at the invaders. Enormous, venomous insects buzzed through the air, while deadly predators on the ground ambushed the alien forces. They had never seen such violent and relentless creatures. Even with the advanced technology they possessed, they were not prepared for the pure brutality of Earth's ecosystems. Their sophisticated weaponry was useless against creatures that had lived for millions of years in the hostile environment of Earth. A pack of Earth's apex predators attacked with savage precision, tearing through the alien ranks. No invaders had ever been attacked as viciously by any of the worlds they had conquered. Their armor, meant to be impenetrable to the firepower of advanced civilizations, could not stand against the merciless might of nature. The predators seemed to have a sense of how to strike, how to kill, and they did so without compunction. But scarier still was the ability of the planet to return fire when least expected. Earth could recover from the most devastating disasters. The invaders were soon to find this out as they tried to plant their flag on the ground. They could only stand idly by and watch as the ecosystem began to fight back at their invasion. Trees sprouted quickly where the invaders had cleared land, as if the planet itself were rejecting the alien presence. Rivers shifted course and redirected the flow of water to areas the invaders had settled. The atmosphere, stable for millions of years, turned hostile overnight as if in response to the invasion itself. Hours were enough to shatter all assumptions about the weakness of Earth. The further they pushed on with the attack, the more isolated they became. Communication with their home fleet was at best spasmodic and efforts to regroup complicated by the constant flux of the Earth environment. Even the best scouts that the aliens had trained to move around the different types of terrain that existed across the galaxy were not able to anticipate what would come next. The planet was in a constant flux, responding to the invasion of the alien by becoming more hostile with every passing day. Their immense powers could not take away from them the fact of the situation they found themselves in. Earth was no longer a planet, it was their enemy, and they were losing. Every attempt they made to reign in the environment backfired against them, leaving them more exposed. In their overconfidence, The alien race had underestimated what resilience a world shaped by millennia of evolution holds. They had assumed that technology would always be enough to conquer, that superior weaponry would always win the day. But Earth was different. The invaders had never encountered a force like it, a force that wasn't bound by the laws of technology but by the ancient, unyielding rules of survival. The invaders realized that they were trapped in an ever-deepening nightmare. Their real enemy was not the planet but the humans who survived and thrived here for millennia. Earth forged its inhabitants into something powerful, something capable of surviving against all odds. Humans, with their ability to adapt, think critically, and overcome, were the true force to be reckoned with on this planet. They had come thinking of an easy target, but found themselves walking into a war completely unprepared for them. A war fought not in technology but with the very survival instincts of the planet itself. The invaders became more and more disoriented on the first days of the invasion. Their leaders, who had initially laid out the strategy, were left bewildered as they struggled to understand what was unfolding before them. The alien troops were starting to wonder if they were fighting to win or just survive the invasion. These invaders, confident in their technological prowess, would do whatever it takes to reassert control again. They started turning against each other because they could not handle the immense power of Earth's natural forces. The humans, however, were yet to reveal themselves in full force. While the invaders were fighting to control the weather of the planet, its wildlife, and its terrain, the humans watched from the shadows, fully aware of the fight that was about to unfold. They had lived in this world for centuries, knowing its dangers, its beauty, and its resilience. And now, they were ready to show the invaders that Earth wasn't a world to be conquered, it was a world to be respected, and humanity was its fiercest protector. The invaders had underestimated Earth greatly. Earth was not just a simple rock in space, but a force of nature, and the greatest of all its creations was man. The first indications of disaster for the alien invaders came swiftly. As their forces pressed deeper into Earth's territories, they encountered something they never expected, an unrelenting fury unleashed by the planet itself. The aliens, confident in their advanced technology, had expected to face human resistance, but they had grossly underestimated the extent of Earth's deadly capabilities. The planet was not just hostile, it was a battlefield that had been forged by millions of years of brutal survival. The aliens, unprepared for the vicious unpredictability of Earth's ecosystems, found themselves trapped in a chaotic struggle for survival. It started with the weather. What the aliens initially saw as minor disturbances quickly escalated into an overwhelming series of storms that ravaged their forces. No sooner did the aliens take a position that would allow their ships to get close enough to Earth for some kind of launch, and before they had advanced their weapons much further into range, but the extreme weather systems of Earth sent torrential rains falling in sheets, flooding their positions. The thunder tore through the sky as lightning shredded apart everything that lay in its path. Now their fleet was crippled by these storms. Their high-tech navigation systems were useless in the face of such unpredictable natural forces. Alien soldiers, accustomed to well-controlled environments, were powerless to respond to a force they had never even conceived of. As the storms raged on, the invaders quickly realized that Earth's weather patterns were unlike anything they had encountered in their galaxy. They tried to salvage their equipment, but the incessant downpours and violent winds made any repairs impossible. The alien leaders tried to maintain order, but the chaos in their ranks was palpable. The power of Earth's weather systems was too much, and soon they were forced to abandon their more vulnerable positions and retreat to whatever shelter they could find. It wasn't just the weather that became their enemy, the creatures of Earth also launched their attacks. The alien invaders, with their advanced weaponry and superior technology, had expected the planet to be populated by primitive and uncoordinated life forms. Instead, they were faced with a planet teeming with life that had evolved to survive in the harshest conditions imaginable. Earth's predators, many of whom had adapted to the planet's volatile and dangerous ecosystems, proved to be an immediate deadly threat to the invading forces. At first, they dismissed these creatures as minor inconveniences, small animals to be easily dispatched. But they were wrong. Earth's wildlife was not to be underestimated. From the tiniest poisonous insects to the biggest apex predators, Earth's animals struck with ferocity, unprepared and unaware of their invaders' technological might. Trained for war against more advanced civilizations, the alien troops were ill-prepared to handle the feral uncertainty of Earth's creatures. A horde of enormous hunters, with claws and teeth honed over millennia, swooped upon the aliens. They fought back, but nothing seemed to be powerful enough to rival the raw energy and instinct of Earth's animals. The extraterrestrial visitors, who had fought armies of humans with sophisticated technology, had not prepared themselves for the violence of nature. Even the more seemingly harmless creatures posed a threat. Hordes of venomous insects dropped down upon the invaders, stinging and biting in waves without weakness. Alien soldiers tried to retreat from the onslaught, but insects followed along, overwhelming an alien army with sheer numbers and aggression. An alien once confident and superior to attack Earth was left fighting an entirely different kind of battle, one where their technology is useless due to sheer numbers and aggression of Earth's wildlife. Trying to adapt, they were immediately obvious as being in over their heads. Their technology, which had been flawless against civilizations they had conquered in the past, was no contest to Earth's brutal unpredictability. The armor designed to withstand harsh conditions of space and firepower of advanced species could not protect these invaders from Earth's creatures' attacks. Even their advanced energy weapons were not of much use against the animals, which somehow materialized everywhere. The once so confident aliens now fought for their lives and were outnumbered and outmatched by creatures they had never even imagined. Days passed, and the invaders began to understand that Earth was not just a planet. They were trapped on a death world where every minute of survival could fight against the environment, the creatures, and the planet itself. Their highly advanced technology, which had once been their greatest strength, now became their biggest weakness. The planet seemed to fight back at every turn, and the aliens were powerless to stop it. Earth's weather systems, its wildlife, and its terrain were forces beyond their control, and no amount of technology could change that. The aliens' initial confidence turned to frustration and fear as they struggled to adapt. Their soldiers, once trained to conquer worlds, began to lose their composure. Now, already too confident in their chances of winning, the invaders realized they had made a grave miscalculation. Earth was not a world to be conquered easily. This was a place where only the strongest survived. The aliens were now learning this lesson the hard way by constantly finding themselves under attack by forces they could neither see nor keep track of. In the midst of this chaos, the alien commanders tried to rally their forces. They attempted to re-establish communication with their home fleet, but Earth's atmosphere, with its unpredictable weather and interference, made it nearly impossible. The alien fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, was now scattered, disoriented, and struggling to maintain any form of coordinated assault. Their invasion, which had seemed so certain, was now teetering on the brink of failure. The invaders began to understand that they were not fighting just against humans. They were fighting against a planet that had been forged through billions of years of brutal evolution. Earth had created creatures that were not only adapted to survive in its harsh conditions but had become powerful enough to defend their territory against any threat. The aliens had assumed Earth would be an easy conquest. They had stumbled into a war they were not equipped to fight, a war that had begun long before they had set foot on this planet. Day after day, the invaders found themselves retreating further, their confidence eroding, their forces dwindling. Earth's wrath was not just a temporary setback, it was a force that seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. The aliens had underestimated the planet's power, and were now paying the price for it. Their equipment was failing, and their soldiers were falling, but their victory was no longer certain. Earth had turned out to be their greatest enemy, and the natural forces of the planet seemed not to be something they could defeat. The humans, however, had not yet revealed themselves fully. The humans were waiting patiently, calmly observing the struggling aliens against the fury of the Earth. As far as human invaders were considered superior, their calculations had greatly underestimated Earth and humanity's own tie to their mother planet. Earth had become a battlefield unlike any they had ever encountered before, and they were realizing, too late, that they were not the apex predators here. They were just another species caught in the unrelenting grip of a world that had learned how to survive against all odds. The alien forces, battered and broken by Earth's relentless natural environment, began to retreat further, but the real shock for them had only just begun. The storms and wildlife had surprised them, but it was the humans who would eventually reveal the real cost of underestimating Earth's inhabitants. The invaders, once so certain of their victory, now faced a battle they had never imagined: the human resistance. The aliens had assumed that humanity was little more than a footnote in the grand scheme of galactic conflict. Their invasion plan had been based on the idea that the human race was too primitive and technologically backward to pose any real threat. But they were sorely mistaken. While their technology had failed against Earth's natural elements, the humans flourished on this planet, adapted to its violent rhythms, and had survived against forces far greater than anything the invaders could imagine. They knew Earth's dangers better than anyone, and they knew how to fight back in ways the aliens couldn't possibly predict. The first sign of human resistance came when small groups of soldiers, survivors of the initial alien assault, began to band together. These humans were not part of any organized military force. They were everyday people, farmers, hunters, scientists, and survivalists, people who knew how to navigate the wilderness and use the land to their advantage. They didn't have the high-tech weapons the aliens possessed, but they had something far more valuable: an intimate knowledge of the land and an innate survival instinct honed over centuries of living in one of the most dangerous environments in the galaxy. The humans quickly adapted to the situation. They used guerrilla warfare tactics, blending into the terrain and using Earth's natural resources to their advantage. The aliens, not knowing the tactics of their human enemies, were surprised at every turn. Human resistance fighters set traps, used makeshift weapons, and coordinated efforts to cause great damage to the invaders. The alien soldiers, trained for battles against more conventional forces, were caught off guard by the ingenuity and relentlessness of the humans. The aliens were accustomed to fighting enemies who followed predictable laws of war, but the humans fought with an unusual desperation that made them unpredictable and downright deadly. One of the main strategies the humans used was turning Earth's most lethal creatures against its alien invaders. Where the alien forces had been overwhelmed by swarms of venomous insects, packs of deadly predators, and extreme weather, the humans had learned to manipulate these forces. They used fire, traps, and natural toxins to defend their territory, utilizing the very creatures that had nearly destroyed the invaders as part of their strategy. The alien forces, who had previously believed that they could easily subdue the planet's wildlife, were now fighting a human force that understood how to tap into the raw power of the planet. This marked a turning point in the war. The alien invaders, in a desperate bid to regroup and regain control, were constantly retreating. The humans, once believed to be helpless and outmatched, had now turned into a very formidable enemy. The aliens' technological superiority was rendered useless, not by the strength of human weapons, but by the cunning and adaptability of the human spirit. The more the humans fought back, the more the aliens began to understand that their victory was not as certain as they had once believed. Besides their natural guile, the humans had something the invaders could not: unity. The humans, divided by nations and cultures, were now united for a common purpose: the defense of their planet. The aliens, on the other hand, were a motley collection of species, each with its own agenda and goals. The alien leadership was fractured, with different factions within the invaders' ranks competing for influence. This lack of unity made their invasion all the more chaotic, as the alien commanders struggled to coordinate their efforts in the face of a constantly shifting battlefield. As the humans continued to strike back, they began to utilize more advanced tactics, learning from the mistakes of the initial attacks. They started targeting the aliens' supply lines. They targeted communication networks and started crippling their reassembly capabilities. In their minds, the humans didn't need to defeat the aliens in a frontal assault. They only needed to make it unsustainable for them to remain on Earth. Each small triumph, the capture of every alien technology, sent a message through to the invaders: Earth was not a world to be conquered. It was a world to be respected. The alien forces that had once been so sure of their supremacy now found themselves trapped in a war of attrition. Their supplies dwindled and their morale collapsed, all while their leadership went increasingly awry. While the humans continued to better with each conquest, They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they were fighting not for survival but for the survival of their own planet. They had something the aliens could not grasp, something the aliens so vehemently came to take, a deeply ingrained, intrinsic connection to their world, a bond forged through generations of living in tune with the forces of the planet. The aliens had thought Earth's inhabitants would simply roll over, that their technology and firepower would be enough to crush any resistance. They were wrong. What they had failed to account for was the human ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight for their survival with an intensity that no alien species could match. The humans didn't need to match the alien technology blow for blow, they simply needed to outsmart their invaders, to turn Earth's greatest dangers into an advantage. As the war continued, the invaders' sense of superiority crumbled. Their advanced weaponry, once seen as their greatest strength, was now a liability in the face of a human force that knew how to turn every situation to their advantage. The alien invaders started to realize too late that they had played all along on Earth's terms. It wasn't just the creatures, weather, or the terrain that had defeated them but the humans, the people who, over thousands of years, had adapted to this world and had survived against all odds. Their final mistake was underestimating human capacity for resilience. These had been formed and shaped by the dangers of their world, created by 1,000 generations of survival on a planet that tested every living creature. These were once underdogs in that so-called primitive species. And yet now they sat over the others, the aliens who, until the day of defeat, thought to take from humans, considering them as inferior, not worthy of notice. The actual war for Earth was just about to start, and it was sure that humanity was going to fight to the end, not just for survival but for the right to be able to protect their home. The invaders had no other choice but to admit the incontestable truth: their Earth campaign was falling apart. The unshakable confidence they had once possessed had been broken, their technology proved useless against the brutal forces of nature and humanity's unyielding spirit. The alien forces, scattered and demoralized, were caught in a war they could not win. Earth, once a primitive world ready for conquest, had become a fortress, with defenders united and more resilient than ever. The alien commanders, seeing that things had gone badly for them, began to rally whatever forces were left. It had come to this: desperate for one last roll of the dice, they intended to go for broke. If they could blow the decisive blow to the humans' position, take out a major stronghold or take out a prominent leader, the human resistance might crack. What they could not understand, however, was that the people were no longer fighting for one place or a person. They were fighting for their whole world, and nothing the invaders did would make them stop. The final battle was marked by the last alien forces retreating to heavily fortified positions, hoping for a regroup and a final stand. They had established advanced weaponry, sent in their elite soldiers, and prepared for what they believed to be their last chance at winning. But they had underestimated Earth itself. Nature, which had already proven to be a powerful enemy, worked against the invaders one last time. A great storm rolled in from the horizon as the aliens prepared for battle. This was no ordinary storm, but rather a combination of Earth's chaotic weather systems. It was a force of nature that the invaders could not control or predict. The alien weapons, as powerful as they were, failed to stand up against the sheer force of the elements. Lightning struck their shields, sending them into overload. The winds raged so severely that even the strongest buildings could not withstand them. The aliens, who had long been confident that they could bear any storm, could not continue to stand against it. It was then when the rest of human forces came. They had assembled, learned from their previous triumphs, and adapted to changing circumstances. The guerrilla war tactics had now been perfected to the finest of arts. The aliens had better technology than humans did. However, this would only allow them to take a stronger grasp over the world for some time. Humans attacked while the storm raged through. The people utilized every little opening within the alien defense line and took full advantage of all its technological flaws. The aliens continued fighting. Still, they had no more choice but to relinquish Earth completely as they lost control of the place. The weather continued to destroy their machinery, their communication systems failed, and their forces were scattered and disorganized. The once proud alien invaders, who had assumed that they were the superior species, now found themselves on the defensive fighting against a force they could neither understand nor control. Earth, through its violent weather and unpredictable environment, had become a weapon in the hands of humanity. The humans, after all, had lived on this earth for millennia and knew how to survive at its extremes. They used the terrain, the weather, and the wildlife to strike at the alien forces with precision and determination. The battle was no longer a question of strength or technology, but rather a test of survival, resourcefulness, and the will to survive. And against all odds, humanity had proven itself to be the superior force on its own planet. With each passing hour, the alien legions grew weaker. The storm intensified, wild animals continued to harass them and also never let up as the humans moved forward relentlessly. Their pristine alien strongholds were shattered remnants of what they had once been. The invaders are battered and broken as they start realizing that their days on Earth may slowly come to an end. The final awakening came with a thud. They had grossly underestimated the planet and its people, who had lived on this Earth for thousands of years. As the storm dissipated and the dust cleared, the alien leadership had one last-ditch effort at saving their invasion. They sounded a retreat, hoping to fall back and flee from the Earth they had confidently assumed would be theirs. Too late. The human forces, invigorated by their victories, closed in. The remaining invaders had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Their technology, which had served as their strongest ally, now had failed them at every turn. Their forces were scattered, morale broken, and the mission ruined. In the end, the alien invaders were forced to retreat, many of them leaving the planet altogether, while others were captured or destroyed in the final wave of human resistance. Earth had won, not through the might of superior technology or overwhelming firepower, but through the sheer will of its inhabitants. The aliens had underestimated the planet's power, and they had underestimated humanity's ability to survive and fight back. They had come to Earth believing it would be an easy conquest, but they discovered, too late, that they had stepped into a war they were never prepared for. The humans, spent but triumphant, surveyed the aftermath. Earth had been scarred by the invasion, but it had endured. The planet, with its unpredictable weather, its deadly wildlife, and its harsh terrain, had proven to be an impenetrable fortress. And humanity, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, had shown that their connection to the planet and their unyielding drive to survive made them the true rulers of Earth. As the last alien ships took off, leaving Earth behind, the humans stood firm. They had faced an overwhelming force and emerged victorious. They had not only defended their home but proved that no matter the enemy, no matter the odds, humanity would always fight to protect the Earth they called home. They had come to conquer, but learned the hardest lesson of all: Earth was not for the taking. Earth belonged to the human race, and humanity was going to fight and defend it at any cost.